Now, this is just wanted to show the single morphine molecule. 70 drugs have been produced at different time intervals by making different derivatives. So when a natural molecule comes, this is the beauty of a natural molecule. It is novel. It has structural diversity. And it has a complexity. At the same time, you can play around the molecule and add certain things, subtract some certain things, retain the activity, potentiate the activity, and divert the compounds in some certain different directions. So it's such an important pharmacophore. All these compounds which are discovered early from 50 to 75, they were potential pharmacophore from which new drugs have been produced. Now, when we talk of the medicinal plants, most of you must be knowing that they are the source of herbal drugs. When I say word herbal drug, we should know the distinction. What is a herbal drug? Herbal drug is just a plant material. When you uproot a plant, herb, it's a herbal drug. You see, this terminology should not be used indiscriminately. Herbal drug preparation. When you powder it, it becomes a herbal drug preparation. Or you just make a decoction, it becomes a herbal drug preparation. Third is herbal medicinal product. When you standardize it, put into some capsules, it becomes a herbal medicinal product. These three terms in the WHO documents are listed. The definition of these: herbal drug preparation, herbal medicinal product. And these are popular in Europe. So far as Canada is concerned, they say it is a natural drug, natural healthcare products. So different terminologies in different countries. In Germany, it is a phytomedicine. And in India, we do not have a word herbal. As per the Drugs Act, we indiscriminately use the word herbal, but herbal word does not exist in the Drugs Act. You see, our Drugs Act was made in 1940, and the rules thereunder were made in 1945. Modification from time to time. Now the Drug Act is so big, along with the rules. And we have been making the amendments from time to time under different rules. Changing an act is very difficult because it goes to the parliament. But rules you can go on adding by making changes in the rules through your technical advisory board that can decide to change certain rules. Rules can be changed, but the act has to be changed by the intervention of the parliament. So these are different terminology. Then these plants have given you single molecule, which I narrated. These plants, aromatic plants, when you think of the aromatic plants, they have given you flavor. They have given you various cosmetics. And the essential oils, essential oil needs a separate lecture altogether. Such an exciting area. The terpenes, you see how the plant synthesizes. Just C5H8, small unit, isoprene unit. C5H8, it builds up. C5H8 multiplied by 2, multiplied by 3, triterpene, multiplied by 4, by 6, goes on building up, ultimately goes to triterpene, tetraterpenes, and all these molecules are formed. So such a complexity is existing in the plant system. From a volatile component makes non-volatile compounds within the same plant system. So then the plants give us the pharmaceutical aids. We are using various excipients for making tablets and other things in pharmaceutical companies. All are coming from plant sources. Gums and mucilages, sweeteners even, sweeteners. Now all are coming from plants. Stevia, rebudiana, this steviol, stevioside, rebidoside, sweeteners, 300 times more sweet than sugar. So then your insect repellents and the insecticide, pesticide from plants. So the plants are the integral part of human system. Well, this I have already narrated, the registered diseases and other things. There's no point of repeating these. Now the regulations. You see, we have a Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, one ministry. Under this ministry, we have the Drugs and Cosmetic Act. That comes under the Ministry of Health. And Ministry of Environment controls the biodiversity. And then, of course, we have Magic Remedies Act. Magic Remedies Act was also framed long back. Magic Remedies Act controls the quacks and also controls the irresponsible advertisement and statements produced by the medical professionals, irrespective of the system of medicine. That's the Magic Remedies Prohibition Act. That people make high claims for certain diseases which are not curable completely. Cancer ठीक कर देंगे, ये ठीक कर देंगे, वो ठीक कर देंगे. This is all Magic Remedies Act. They should be hanged, people who make such high claims, because you cannot play with the life of the patient when you make a claim but your drug is not effective. It means you are playing the life of a patient, playing with the life of the patient, and that's a criminal. So under Drug and Magic Remedies Act, people can be sued, but it's not being followed. Unnecessarily, you see the advertisement in the TV, high claim certain products. Where is the proof? Have you done any scientific investigation to give the proofs? Where are the clinical trials? Where are the safety things? But people advertise, and advertisement is not legal. But certain diseases like diabetes, cancer, you can't advertise that you have a cure for it. Anyway, Ministry of Health controls the Drugs and Cosmetic Act. And earlier, 1964, the Chapter 4 controlled the allopathic drugs. Chapter 4A was added in 1964 within the Drugs Act to accommodate the traditional systems of medicines. So if you have to see the Drug Act, you see the traditional system of medicines are in Chapter 4A. Chapter 4 deals with the allopathic drugs. So separate rules, separate schedules, separate appendices for the traditional system. And traditional system medicines are called ASU drugs. ASU drugs means Ayurvedic Unani Siddha drugs. There is no word like traditional medicine because some Ayurvedic people are very touchy. If you say Ayurvedic drug is a traditional, they say, oh, no, we are modern. Our Ayurveda is not traditional, they say. So some people are very touchy about these words. But technically speaking, we should not use indiscriminately these words. Herbal drug, wo herbal drug kha raha hai. Which herbal, which system? Siddha drug hai, Unani drug hai, Ayurvedic drug, which drug? Or homeopathy drug hai. So we have to be, as scientists, we have to be careful when we are using these kinds of terminology. So in 1964, the Act was framed, Chapter 4, for the traditional, for controlling traditional systems of medicine. But one blunder was made there in the Act. That is, the control of these traditional system medicine under the domain of the states, respective states. Whereas the modern drugs are controlled by the Drug Control General of India. It's a central. You have to get a license from the center for producing a drug. So DCGI controls the modern drugs, but the traditional drugs are controlled by the AYUSH system in the respective states. Now, there are different definitions which have been coined, 3A definition, 3H definition. There are classical. You see, we have, under the Act, there's a classical medicine, ASU drug classical. And those are what our ancient Rishi and Muni, they wrote certain formulae. And in the Act, there is a schedule, one of the books. There are 57 books which have been listed in that schedule. And they contain formulae of the drugs along with the ingredients. Now, if you prepare that drug according to the ingredient and the method enshrined in the books, then it is called a classical drug. And उसके ऊपर टैक्स भी कम लगता है गवर्नमेंट का और उसमें you can't do any modifications, you can't do research, you can't change. So that's a sort of dead material. जो कुछ बना है अब च्यवनप्राश इस तरह लिखा तो इसी तरह ही बनेगा. Even if you think that आंवले को इतनी देर बॉयल करते रहेंगे तो क्या निकलेगा उसमें से. तो but that is a classical way of preparing. Those are classical drugs. च्यवनप्राश, aspharistas, these are classical formulations which you cannot change. Second is a proprietary drugs. You take the plants from the list of the schedule and those plants you mix depending upon the discretion of the physician, they can mix and prepare proprietary product. So that is where the science can go in the proprietary product. But those are total plants, number of plants is about 2,300 plants. It means the rest of the plants which are used by tribal people, those are not covered. So therefore, this knowledge is restricted only to the ASU drugs where the plants can be used. Hence, I would advise the scientists who are working for developing a herbal drug, what you call, don't call nowadays herbal drugs. From this day onward, at least don't call it a herbal drug, Ayurvedic drug, or Unani drug, or Siddha drug. You have to use the plants which are mentioned in the scriptures of the Schedule 1 books. 2,300 plants are there. If you go beyond it, it is not longer a plant which you can use. For example, some of your plants which are very rich, very useful, but they cannot be placed under the traditional system of medicine. Those are not listed in the, so the drug controller will not give you the license. So see the index, whether your plant that you're working falling under the category of the ASU drugs or not. That criteria should be made sure before you say I'm going to work on the Ayurvedic plant. Anyway, the route for this is the phytopharmaceutical route. For such kind of potential plants which are used by tribals but not listed in Schedule 1 of the books where you cannot produce these ASU drugs, you have a phytopharm. That was one of the reasons why we attempted and struggled for getting the phytopharmaceutical separate category so that there is freedom to use any plant of the world. You see, they have made a restriction that only these plants can be used, but this restriction is not there in the phytopharmaceutical area, which we have identified. That was one reason. Second reason was, being remained in academics for so long, I realized that my PhD students, they produce number of fractions which are so active, but we have nowhere to go. They identified the compound, single compound is not active, fraction is more active, and that's where we wanted to help that level of scientist. That is when they are doing research, a fraction becomes active. When they isolate a compound, it's present in tiny amount and not that active as the fraction is. It means there is a holistic approach of some of the compounds which could be used in metabolic disorders, which are multi-targeted diseases, and that can be positioned under phytopharmaceutical. So these are two major reasons why we struggled looking into the plight of our students, that they cannot move forward for the development of a drug if the plant is very rich but is not listed in the Schedule 1 of the books, Ayurvedic books, then probably he's lost. He will go nowhere. His research remains only in the papers and only in the thesis. So these were two reasons why we struggled for about 12 years to get this phytopharmaceutical category introduced into the modern system of medicine. Now, any drug which is produced by a phytopharmaceutical route will not be used by Ayurvedic persons, because these are scientifically proven, efficacious, safe drug to be used by the modern physician. So that's the distinction. As you use the single molecule, same way the phytopharmaceutical route. That's why most of the regulations are comparable to the single molecule, but comparatively, journey is shorter. You can, with a lesser investment, you can produce a drug, because single molecule takes billions of dollars as US claims. But unfortunately, our pharma industry in India has grown very well, has done very well, because we started from zero. After independence, 1948, we had nothing in hand to produce drugs. And we imported bulk drugs and produced syrups. That was in 1950s. We produced syrups or powdered drugs, importing the bulk material and then selling in the market, putting in the market, giving to the physicians. 1960s, we started making tablets. That's how the pharmaceutical machinery came up. The Indian engineers were so good that they produced the machinery, tableting machine, pulling machine, compressing machine, all sorts of things were prepared in India, indigenous machinery. We made a name now, so far as pharmaceutical machinery is concerned. 1960s, we started making other formulations. formulation expertise. And 70s, 80s, we became self-sufficient so far as the raw material. We were not importing any material from outside. All the APIs were prepared in India. 1980s, self-reliant. India became self-reliant so far as modern drugs are concerned. You know what is the position of pharma sector today? We have 10,500 manufacturing units in India, out of which 1,200 units are WHO approved. And they have the recognition from the European Commission for approval of drugs. And they have 1,200 R&D centers where the research is going on. But unfortunately, drug discovery, we remained at the back seat. We are number one so far as the generic products are concerned. We are number 3 in the world market of producing the drugs in volume, huge volume, 10% volume, we are getting 10% of the world market. Every third pill available in the market is made in India. That's the kind of strength we have built up in pharma sector. But pharma sector has not focused. They are in the generics now, because that's the easy way. Any patent which expires, you may take a copycat and produce a new drug. You know ciprofloxacin? Ciprofloxacin, India is producing now 120 generic versions. Atorvastatin, 60 generic copies have been prepared in India. So the prices have gone down. That's how India brought the drug prices down, which US doesn't like. And that is the strength of the country. But unfortunately, new drug discovery, because it needed a lot of investment, pharma sector has not focused towards new drug discovery, whether it was a Ranbaxy, or it was a Cadila, or it was Sun Pharma, or any big concern, Cadila. They have not gone into that direction of developing a new drug. Reddy's lab, they synthesize very good molecules which are very active, but ultimately they sold out when it came to the level of the clinical stage, sold out the molecules. Anyway,